It wasn't until a few years ago that I really got into Dark Souls. I'd always thought that the idea of the series was silly and kind of a waste of time. A game where the purpose was to die 1,000 times to overcome an obstacle sounded like a strange form of torture to me. Even when I sat down and started trudging through Dark Souls 1, it was sometimes more of a chore than anything else. I didn't realize it until I sat at the end credits, reflecting on my journey, but the game treats the player in an incredibly polarized way compared to the vast majority of other games. And it's refreshing. It's not a world for you to start from the bottom and climb up to be some overpowered hero. It's a game about surviving and overcoming real, tangible odds over and over again. After Dark Souls 1, I jumped straight into Bloodborne. I've heard both praise and contempt for how fast-paced combat is, but that's exactly what I wanted. And, well, I beat Bloodborne in 2.5 days. I love this game so much that I bought it for every friend with a PS4 I thought might enjoy it because I want to share the experience that much. The game is very close to perfect in my eyes, and all I want from it is a PC port. That leads us into Dark Souls 3, which is also an incredible game. The combat is slower and weightier, which is a blessing and a curse, and there's more customization than I know how to handle. In short, the game is an absolute masterpiece. Needless to say, I've been very excited for Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. I purposely avoided any information other than the gameplay reveal. I know there's an emphasis on jumping and verticality, it's a tight narrative, and it's set in a fantasy feudal Japan. What's there not to love? This game should be an easy classic, and after playing it, I gotta say Sekiro is easily my favorite game in quite some time. FromSoftware absolutely nailed it. They perfectly balanced the old with the new. Exploration in Sekiro is the most immersive and rewarding from the series yet. The changes to combat make fights more methodical, complex, and faster than ever, but also somehow more forgiving, even though the game is harder. All in all, Sekiro has been one huge memorable experience that had me begging for more every step of the way. The decision to add meaningful verticality to a Dark Souls-esque game is possibly the best design choice since the same idea was incorporated into the Zelda franchise. There's something so liberating about being able to explore a world however you want, and Sekiro absolutely kills it in this department. Allowing the player to climb walls helps the game feel less like I'm being shepherded through a series of hallways, and more like the world is a natural and believable place. Obviously, I'm still on a fine-tuned path that the devs have created, but I don't see the barriers of the map as a physical stop for my character. It's just an extension of the world. It certainly beats Bloodborne, where I was a literal god killer, but a waist-high fence could stop me. The worst defense a game that encourages exploration can do is stop me from exploring for such a silly reason. There's never even an inkling of a moment where I question Sekiro in this way, because the moveset is so complete. What's the waist-high wall in Sekiro? A giant cliffside? A mountain? An actual wall? There's no question when they're unscalable. And don't even get me started on the grappling hook. It's simple, it's gimmicky, sure, but it's really convenient for both exploration and combat. A single button is dedicated to the rapid relocation of my character, and that's a lovely tool, as limited as it is sometimes. While we're on the topic of new mechanics, sneaking is also such a welcome addition to the Dark Souls formula. Up until this point in the franchise, the Dark Souls experience has pretty much been this. The player's goal is to get to the next checkpoint, some distance away. There's always a gauntlet of enemies that blocks the path, and any one of them can kill the player if they forget what game they're playing. The options are to either face all the enemies, or the player can run past them and pray for dear life. Sekiro sneaking embraces both of these options, but it gives far more depth and weight to both playstyles. Do I scout the area and formulate a plan of attack first? Maybe I count the guards and study their paths to find the optimal way to take each of them down separately and silently. Or maybe I should run in like a maniac and go for a stealth kill on the big enemy so the fight will be easier, only for another big enemy to come around the corner and pummel me for acting so rash. The options are endless. Fortunately, combat is more refreshing and rewarding than ever. The speed of attacks and lack of stamina bar promotes staying in active combat much longer and playing both more aggressive and defensive. In the stamina bar's place, there's now what's called the posture meter. Every combatant in Sekiro has a posture meter, and when it's filled up, when their posture breaks, they're left open for attacks. In the case of enemies, you can kill them with a death blow, no matter where their health is. You can fill up an enemy's posture by hitting them or deflecting their blows. A perfect deflection doesn't break an enemy's attack anymore, but it does raise their posture meter without yours increasing. All of this is to say that combat is much more strategic now, and that there's plenty of added risks and rewards. It's complicated, but I love it. As much as every Dark Souls game builds on the previous ones, it's always the same core experience. Avoid enemy attacks, especially the big ones. Parry, sometimes, and attack when you can. Sekiro incentivizes a mix of gameplay styles that feels mandatory to success at times, which is hugely divergent from previous titles. I spent a long time using my Soulsborne mentality on this game, and I repeatedly ran headfirst into walls. Sometimes I overcame them through attrition, but mostly I failed time and time again. It wasn't until I unlearned how to play and relearned how to block attacks that the game really started to shine for me. Yes! Once I learned how to properly deflect, nothing could stop me anymore. Except the final boss fight. The vast majority of enemies in Sekiro are now humanoid, which, let's be real, is the best part of Dark Souls. It's usually much easier to read what attacks to expect from a humanoid, so combat encounters become much more universal. There's also something magical about when enemies have the same mobility or abilities that I do. This is what makes boss fights like Father Gascoigne in Bloodborne an instant classic, and it's what makes so many bosses in Sekiro so memorable. Since it's now possible to kill an enemy at any amount of health, the vast majority of bosses compensate by having multiple health bars. Bosses generally have 2 forms now, but I've seen up to 4, so fights can last quite a bit longer. These changes treat combat as more of a dance than a battle of attrition like previous titles have. Don't get me wrong, it's still an uphill battle to even survive, but the tug-of-war of posture helps focus combat into more moment-by-moment goals. Now I've got to take a moment to talk about the respawn mechanic in Sekiro, which I thought was gimmicky at first, but I've grown to love it throughout the game. Being able to respawn up to 3 times by the end of the game is a wonderful addition. It encourages me to explore further and risk more because there's some kind of safety net, and it all manages to feel balanced even in boss fights. I will say that having to kill enemies to recharge part of the respawn meter sucks, especially when I get stuck on a boss fight, but otherwise I absolutely love this mechanic. All in all, I hope Sekiro sets a precedent for Soulsborne Kiro games going forward. The new levels of interactivity with the world and the changes to combat are absolute musts going forward. I can't possibly imagine how to fit the streamlined package of Sekiro into the expansiveness of Dark Souls, but it would have to be a massive game, and I eagerly await that future. Thanks for watching the video. I really appreciate you giving me your time. If you liked the video, think about giving it a like, leave a comment down below if you want to let me know your thoughts, and stay tuned for new content. There's a lot on the way. Anyways, thanks again for everything, and have a great day.